Signores, benvenuti a questa nuova reaction. Allora, un paio di cosucce. Allora, domani si torna a Salerno, e quando inizierà sta cacchio di serie io non lo so, che mi ci devo stabilire, ok? Che capite? Mi ci devo stabilire qua. E, e vabbè, cose personali, mi voglio un attimo sfogare. Dove le cose? Ho ricevuto un altro ban da Reddit, ma sempre lo stesso tipo, sempre incito alla violenza che... Cioè, ma lo devo capire che io le scrivo per scherzo, cioè... Io non è che vado a commettere... Cioè... A commettere un cacchio di genocidio, cioè, ma lo capite, no? Io so che queste cose non si devono fare, ma però io ci scherzo sopra perché siamo su Reddit, come dire, un posto matto. Perché non posso... Mamma mia, ragazzi, mamma mia, scusate, ma devo sempre avere un social che mi rovina, che mi rovina la vita. Prima, prima era TikTok, poi ho avuto Discord, adesso c'ho Reddit. Il prossimo quale sarà? Instagram? Io YouTube non lo conto come social comunque perché vabbè, cioè, è un video, è una piattaforma di condivisione video, ok? Non è un social, ma vabbè. Dopo questo sfogo sui social media, che in realtà lo devo fare, lo faccio se in realtà sempre lo voglio fare, scusate. Signori, per fortuna che sta cosa pensano che tu, alleluia, una cosa su cui tutti, su cui posso ritrovare d'accordo con tutti. Alleluia, vabbè, a parte tutto questo, allora, signori, come vi ho già detto, Vise l'ha finalmente rilasciato, l'iceberg definitivo sulla Coppa del Mondo. E vabbè, ragazzi, io direi che potremmo iniziare. Se sì, vabbè. Perché mo la barra di YouTube poi è diventato un pallone da calcio? Ma che è sta roba? Vabbè, iniziamo, va? Allora, no, magari...
Testing, 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 testing.
Ah, ma ci dobbiamo... Ah, ma ha messo l'ultima parte di tipo anni fa, cioè... Vabbè. Ragazzi, mi sa che... Siete pronti per riguardarvi un video? Ma siete pronti? A distanza di solamente poche settimane, quindi vabbè ragazzi, che vedevo dire, ma vabbè.
Let's go. Today we're doing the iceberg. Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait. Damn, I look skinny. Welcome to the Ultimate World Cup.
Ok, sì, sembravi un po'... Però Maronna Santa quanto odio che mo...
Iceberg. What you've seen there was a clip of me from about 3 years ago. Now, I
Sì,
did
3 anni fa, sì.
do a World Cup iceberg
Ok, traduzione automatica, italiano,
a long
scusate.
time ago, but I didn't really do it right. Like, the worst thing I put in there was like the fact I referee in the Croatia game, like yellow carded the same player 2 times and didn't realize it. Like, it just wasn't done correctly, and there were so many more
Cioè,
stories that I missed out. So I
sì, veramente, è stato molto insipido, ok? Quella reaction l'ho fatta molto per pigrizia, c'è da dire questo, sì, perché era l'unico video del genere, quindi
do
sì.
it right. But this will be the complete World Cup iceberg with many more stories in it, with many more things that you may have heard or may have not heard. If you did see my entire history video, you would probably be more aware of this, but in this video I'd
Vabbè,
actually have a lot more time to go more into detail. Please do like and subscribe. We're now 14,000 subs away from 500,000 subscribers.
ok.
Liam, in the past, what's an iceberg? What is an iceberg? What is this video? Am I actually on about icebergs? No, I'm not. You see an iceberg, you see the tip, kind of funny, and some are really top and serious. So, I'll try and deal
Cose serie, mette il cacchio il polpo poll, perché cosa c'è di disturbante nel polipo?
this in the best and most respectful way I can, but I am an idiot. That's good.
Uè, salve, ma volete... Benvenuti ad una nuova puntata di coso. gli effetti di un anno di rewatch di Ciao Darwin su un essere umano. Cacchio ragazzi, non ho fatto... Cacchio è... Vabbè raga, come dire, oggi è meglio stare qua, si sta molto più comodi qua al piano di sotto, al piano di sopra c'è la, come dire, la mia camera da letto con la foto di Paolo che alza il dito, vabbè. Comunque, allora, vabbè, una cosa che, cioè, come dire, non è una cosa che proprio c'entra, cioè, è una cosa che ho imparato, perché vabbè, c'è c'è una puntata, arriva la prova di coraggio, tra l'altro stessa puntata in cui viene il frame di Paolo che ti alza il dito medio, che vabbè, come dire, quindi sarà una puntata leggendaria, come dire, e vabbè, c'era sta prova di coraggio che tipo Paolo diceva che era basata su una cosa punitiva che facevano tipo i bizantini o vabbè comunque qualche popolo antico per le persone accusate di adulterio che tipo ti piazzavano tre polipi, uno sulla parte bassa, uno sulla parte che so, sul torso e poi uno in faccia. Sì, sì, sì. Eh, come dire. Cioè, le prove di coraggio non sono la cosa più terrificante del mondo. Cioè, è un misto tra cosa terrificante e cosa ultra mega divertente. Non c'è proprio il mix perfetto. Quindi,
On
vabbè.
Bizarre Designs, you knew they were coming 50% on all items.
Vabbè. Ok, la punta
The
dell'iceberg.
Jabulani. The Jabulani is
Ok.
a foot.
Ah, sì, ha messo il video originale. Ok, quindi sarà tipo un misto tra il video. Ok, capito. Vabbè. La Giabulani. Ah, tra l'altro noi ci siamo pure finiti l'album. Sì, quindi come dire. Sì, vabbè, la Giabulani iniziamo.
Ball, if you don't know. Back in the 2010 World Cup, there was this ball right here,
Sì, è
which
il
is supposed to.
mondiale di quando io sono uscito dalla vulva. Volete qualche mia foto di io appena uscito dal... Ecco, questa è una foto di io appena uscito dalla vulva. Ecco qua. Ecco qua. Ragazzi, guardate me da piccolo. Guardate io quando ero piccolo. Mo guardatemi adesso che sembro un cacchio di... Vabbè, scusate, sembro un cacchio di papà depresso di 50 anni, boh. Vabbè, ma comunque sì. E poi, aspetta, però ho visto la... Ma non è che l'ho fatta tipo che ero ad un qualche... Sembra presa da tipo un concerto, non mi ricordo che posto ero, perché, come dire, però sì, guardate, tutti sti capelli biondi, mo, che c'ho, una cacchio di cosa steppiata, però, e forse ce ne sono altre. Ecco qua, c'ho anche questa, io tutto, guardate, io sfondo tutto blu e io con sta felpa, che cos'è sta felpa? Vabbè, sembra la classica felpa americana, no? Le classiche, vabbè. Guardate, io da piccolissimo, vabbè, come dire, torniamo a noi,
Barney,
allora.
which had a lot of criticism by a lot of the players and staff of each nation. Some more than others, some loved it, some hated it. Mostly hated it. I don't know how to explain it, but simply put, there was something weird about this ball that made it erratic and unpredictable. And I believe the reason is that it was too round.
Cioè,
Like, I don't know how that's possible for.
cioè, proprio, hai presente quando ti dicono fai un cerchio perfetto? Ecco qua, loro ci
But
sono
here we are.
riusciti.
Apparently, the ball was designed so well to be so round and curved by Adidas that it was too round that when the ball was hit, how it reacted to the air, it became erratic and it moved and it swayed a lot. Therefore, if you're a goalkeeper, good luck. That's pretty much the point here. Many goalkeepers coming
Sì,
out and complaining, many players coming out and complaining, many managers and staff members coming out and complaining, and it created many incredible goals for the World Cup
sì,
and a
con
lot of positive
Forlan, mamma mia. Aio.
tears, but oh no, the Jabalani will always go down in football history of being one of the most iconic and most recognised footballers there is out there. because
Eh,
of a ball being too round. I still don't know how that even makes any sense. Of a ball that's too round, but there you go, boys. Jabulani, always a place in my heart for being just a great laugh. Luis Suarez handball. Never say Luis Suarez.
ecco, rimaniamo sempre nel mondiale del
This to
2010.
a Ghanaian. Just
Sì,
simply
sì.
put, don't do it. You may actually get stabbed. I don't want to say that Ghanaians stab people, but when it comes to Luis Suarez, they may have an exception. We're staying in
Beh,
the 2010 World Cup, and in the quarterfinal in South Africa. This is held in Africa. Ghana being
aspetta. Ok, scusa, me lo dico.
potentially a African nation in a World Cup semi-final. This hits hard
Succederà 12 anni dopo.
because what happened is that in the extra time there was a chance, and Luis Suarez on the line hit the ball with his hands, blatant handball, gets given a red card, he's sent off, and it goes to a Ghana penalty. Okay, Asamoah Gyan steps up. The entire country is watching. The entire continent is watching him to send an African nation to a semi-final of an African World Cup, and he missed it.
Bene.
And Luis Suarez, what really hurt was the celebrations, because of course Uruguay went on from that miss to go
Aspetta. Ragazzi, scusate, mi sto distraendo troppo oggi, non so che è. Le vacanze, raga.
on penalties, and Luis Suarez was held as a hero. In simple terms, cheating. He purposely cheated.
Cioè,
Took the risk of going down to 10 men, and somehow it worked
Tiara ha fatto un video dove ricostruisce il Bari, dopo me lo vado a vedere però prima.
out for him. So it's
Ma no.
genius, but don't say that to a Ghanaian, otherwise it may actually kill you. To this day, just Luis Suarez is not a word that is spoken about in that country. 7-1. Brazilians, come on. Let's be real.
Siete son. E mo, come avete visto, mo è diventato, mo anche per il Curaçao.
Surprise. Imagine hosting a World Cup, and in all countries, you are Brazil, one of the most passionate footballing nations in the world. You host a World Cup. You're in a World Cup semi-final against Germany, and you lose 7-1 in front of your entire nation. I remember where I was when I watched this. I remember being in my living room, and I remember just having. I remember what was I drinking? I had a dark fruits. I had a Strongbow dark fruits watching this game.
Ma che è sta
I
roba,
remember
sta
the
bibita?
taste of the dark fruits. That's how recognizable. I remember going to the group chat, and literally no one could actually understand what they were witnessing here. 7-1 in a World Cup. They were 5-0 at half time, I think. This loss was so bad that it became a day of mourning, a week of mourning. Because of the images and
Ma lo sapete che io vi ricordo, sì, quando, vabbè, io ho registrato dei video durante la finale sì, la finale del Mondiale del 2022, addirittura andai io su qualche server Discord a informare, ehi, la Francia sta 2-0, ma mi ricordo pure, che sì, poi... anche quando abbiamo vinto l'Europeo nel 2021, mi ricordo ancora che ero nel salotto e hanno detto, guarda, stanno i rigori e tipo io ho esultato, sono andato pure fuori a esultare dal balcone, era in questa stessa, in questa casa, ok, ve lo dico, cioè.
the videos that we saw from that night will be remembered in Brazilian history. To end it on a high note, they did face against each other in the Olympics. Brazil v Germany, and Brazil did come out on top with Neymar
Bene.
also winning that. So it did give some sort of justice and respect back to the nation since. So at least there's that. But
No.
forever, this game will always be remembered, at least
Sì.
in recent footballing history, and one of the most recognisable games in the World Cup there's ever been. Pele. I must have Pele in here, just because it's Pele. No other reason. There you go. World
Sì.
Cup songs. This must be
Ah.
confused, but for me, I realised that World Cup songs is possibly even bigger than the World Cup itself at times, and that may make no sense. But just type up on YouTube right now. Just type up World Cup, and the first thing that dropped down in your search bar is World Cup song or World Cup songs.
Vabbè,
It's
sì.
the first thing that pops up. Not World Cup, final, World Cup highlights, World Cup.
World Cup, World Cup. Mamma mia, Speed, che mo ne ha fatto un'altra e mo è tipo ufficiale, vabbè. Ah, io volevo fare il video sui Wojak sulla Coppa del Mondo, però come dire, non...
Years 2018, 2014. No, it's World Cup song. The likes of Waka Waka, Shakira, Waving Flag with her, ever be, maybe beyond football. Every single fan of football in the world knows these songs, and it is iconic to the game. Most conversations about the World Cup online, it always ends up to, yo, so Waka Waka or Waving Flag? Waka Waka, waving, it's Waving Flag. It's absolutely Waving Flag. Cameroon,
come dire, when I get older, I will be strong.
2002 jersey. There's not many kits in football history that gets
Madonna.
banned, but Cameroon somehow managed to pull that one off. That in 2002 they rocked with this bad boy. It's missing sleeves. It's a vest. This got banned. Do you know how hard it is to get a shirt banned for a national team? It got banned at the World Cup because of, I believe, sponsorship reasons or
Sì,
something.
Madonna, oh, sembra cioè, una cacchio come si chiama quella, sì, tipo come si chiama la giacca, mi sono scordato come si chiama quella cosa bianca che me le mettevo prima per poter coprire la pancia, ora non le indosso più, ragazzi, ora c'ho proprio tutta la panza, no, non è, beh, che schifo,
How do you
scusate.
get a shirt banned, lads? The funny thing is, this isn't just one time, but it's two times as well that Cameroon has got their shirts banned. Because they went from this, the vest top with no sleeves, which is actually quite a banger to be fair. I rate the idea. They went from that and thought, you know what, yeah, how about we do a one piece kit? They were just taking the. I massively respect Cameroon. They had a one piece kit. It was connected, the shorts and the shirt. Do you
Ah,
know how dumb
figo.
that sounds? But they rocked it. And they had that back too. It isn't anything serious. It's
Cioè,
just rare that you get a shirt banned at the World Cup. Like, it's just fair play. I forgot to mention, but that was the peak of it, or the above surface level. Now let's get into the surface level of the
ok,
iceberg here. The tier beneath. Whenever we go down,
quello
it's going to get a
dentro,
bit more
ok.
weirder, a bit more less known, or a bit more serious. It depends on how I kind of rank it here. And let's start off with a big one on the surface level, right?
Ok, livello superficiale, ok.
Slavery in Qatar. The Qatar
Mm.
World Cup has had many publications over it, and this is why it's so high. They should be lower down, but because so many people knows about it, is what makes it
Beh,
even more weirder. Everyone knows that how the stadiums have been built in the last couple of years is very inhumane. There's been multiple countless deaths that's been related to members that has built the stadiums over in Qatar. People coming from other countries, from surrounding nations, looking for work, looking for any way to provide for their family. People are very desperate to provide for their family. It could be a combination of inhumane work hours, working from rise till dawn every day, poor living conditions, poor nutrition, the beyond
cacchio.
excruciating heat. All these factors come together. What has created this World Cup? This leads to my next point. 2022 World Cup. A
Ah,
recent and very popular conspiracy is that FIFA or Qatar or whoever they believe can be controlling it rigged the 2022 FIFA World Cup for
eh,
Dinam.
questa è una teoria della cospirazione che fanno i fan di Ronaldo, non credeteci, ma no, santi, e poi sono appena ricordato tutto il periodo su TikTok, oddio TikTok, fatemelo scordare, ah!
To force him to be the winner and to change football history forever, making the Qatar World Cup forever ingrained in football history. That would be better for tourism, etc., etc., and for people to forget the countless issues and conspiracies that people had with the event in the first place. Lionel Messi was given 5 penalties throughout the entire tournament, which is quite high, and this came at some very important times in some big games, and of course, especially in the World Cup final and key games in the group stage where they were at risk of being knocked out. No one really believes this, I don't think, unless if you are a Cristiano Ronaldo fan. FIFA Gate. The amount of FIFA officials which has been arrested, founded for bribes, fraud, so many arrests and crimes has been caused by FIFA officials. It is actually getting beyond a joke at this stage. Of course, there's the example
Cioè,
of the likes
mamma
of
mia.
Qatar being maybe a bribe to get into the World Cup. There's no actual proof of that, but there's proof of other World Cups being given with some kind of weird little leniencies. We all know that FIFA is a corrupt organization,
Sì.
and that is what makes it even worse. The fact that we already know, but there's nothing that we can do to change it. And I could go into every single arrest here, but I could be for 15-20 minutes. This should be low down on the list, but because
beh.
it's so well known is what makes it almost worse. Everyone knows about it. It's just Voodoo Sailors. Now, yes, this may seem like a really
Madonna santa, quel suono, cioè.
weird point to come after what we just said. However, I could put this on a very, very serious level here because this is the worst thing that has ever been created known to man. Go back to that World Cup and watch any highlights, watch any commentary, watch anything about it without just hearing nah, nah,
Nah.
you know what I mean? What's happening here? Whose idea was it to get this little horn thing and to literally who sold that? I need to know 500 blocks outside.
Ok, ho cambiato stazione, mi si stava scaricando il tablet. Avete capito, ragazzi? Oggi veramente non ho voglia di registrare. Vabbè.
Every single stadium with these fucking horns. Who got that going? Who thought, yeah, that sounds pretty good? Sailors, like 2006, Zinedine Zidane headbutt. I remembered where I was when this happened. I was in my kitchen, my dad put me downstairs. I was upstairs playing Halo. I was playing Halo, doing it all. And then my dad said,
Mamma
it's
mia.
out near the end of the game. Come downstairs.
Io ci giocavo ad Halo, mi sembra ho giocato al 5. Non l'ho mai finito, però forse perché ad un certo punto c'era una parte che a un certo punto mi sono messo. Sì, forse c'era arrivata una parte che non riuscivo a completare e quindi l'ho letteralmente droppato e vabbè. Ah, comunque Amorim, nuovo allenatore del Milan. Cazzo, eh! Non lo so cosa potrebbe fare, non lo so.
Know why I wasn't watching it. I don't know. I was just too busy playing Halo, bro. I'm such a gamer boy I am. And I remember watching it on like my little box TV in my kitchen. I remember this. I just saw him headbutt him. Because I was like 7, so I didn't really know what I even saw there. But I remember my dad to this day. My dad just went, "Oh Christ!" I don't know why. Zinedine Zidane, one of the most beautiful footballer, creativity, flair, elegance, grace, just absolutely everything about Zidane. And it goes out by headbutting a geezer on the pitch in a world.
Aspetta che vado un attimo. Non ce la faccio, raga, oggi, ok?
Okay, one of the best penalties, a chip. Okay, a Panenka chip in a World Cup final. The balls! I can't tell if I should respect you or not, because that is disgusting, lad. This is from the word of Materazzi of why Zidane headbutted him. Now, this is, of course, his word, so maybe lying, but this is what he said, allegedly. After the third clash, I frowned and he retorted, "I'll give you my shirt later." I replied that I would rather have his sister than his shirt, in which led to Zinedine Zidane going backwards and headbutting him to his chest. To his chest. I've never known a man think, "I'm gonna headbutt you in your chest." Do you know how solid your head must be to think that that's the way to go? I kind of respect it. I've never seen a guy headbutt a chest, bro. Dan, of course, got sent off, and France lost the World Cup final. But yet, it's still seen as a hero because, well, it's a Dan lad. Oh, no, Ronaldo,
scusa.
1998. Okay, so I've already done a video about this entire
particolare sta situazione.
So if you want to see it, if you're interested in a much more in-depth video on my channel, video's right there. Go and check it out. You may find it interesting. But long story short, basically, on the day before the 1990 World Cup final, it was alleged that Ronaldo felt incredibly sick, throwing up everywhere, and was completely out of, like, he was not ready. He was not ready to play the football match. Was no man ready to play in a World Cup final. He was not physically fit. Ronaldo was in a seizure-like state, and after his episode, he then woke up and was told afterwards what went on. This was on the day of the World Cup final between France and Brazil. Now, the conspiracy is the fact that Nike forced Ronaldo to play in the final because of marketing and sponsorship reasons. Mainly because the manager at the time took his name off the team sheet, and then after, for some reason, an hour before kickoff, his name got put back on the team sheet, even though he had a seizure earlier in the day. He was not ready to play in a game of that magnitude, in any game in general, but never mind a World Cup final, man. Tell me if you guys believe that. Diego Maradona, hand of God. Ha! I'm English, so this. Of course, I wasn't.
Come dire?
I'm not in my 40s, so I can't really look back at this experiencing really any sort of like anger or pain because I wasn't born then. But from what
Beh,
I know from my family, he's not really a liked person with my granddad. He's not. The 1986 World Cup, Argentina versus England in the quarter-finals, held in Mexico, and Diego Maradona made that game his own. You don't even need to
sì,
know
cioè,
football. This is how far this transcends. You don't need to care about football. You barely need to know that football even existed, and you would know this photo. You will know this photo.
cioè,
I don't care if you are like a badminton player. You may just read books all day. You may live in a fucking rock. You may be like Patrick Star from SpongeBob, bro. You know this photo. You know the name Hand of God, and you may not even care about who's even involved, what game it was, and what part of the world it was in. It doesn't matter. Game just epitomizes Diego Maradona and his brilliance and this completely just wacky nature. The first goal in the game, of course, the famous Hand of God goal, where he roars like a salmon and literally palmed the ball in the back of the net above Shilton. And for whatever reason, not the linesman, not the referee, no one that has any indication of how to really change a game, didn't see it for whatever reason. It was perfectly placed. And what makes it even better, I guess, if you're Maradona, is that later in that same game, and of course, Argentina went on to go and
ah,
win the World
tagliato,
Cup, and that is why Maradona is held so highly. That is why the
Fece anche quel gol, cioè, i suoi due gol più iconici in una sola partita, cioè, nella stessa partita.
Messi to Maradona so much that Maradona literally dragged by cheating almost as well, forced Argentina to have that World Cup, and that is why so many people compare Maradona and Messi. So that is now the surface level
Ok.
category done. Now let's enter into the first tier below the surface level. The things that you may know about, but not everyone. Okay, you may know about it, but some won't. Let's start off with Maradona again. And
Ah,
that
di
is
nuovo Maradona.
doping. It's Maradona, bro. He's most definitely doing drugs.
Mamma, guardate sta faccia. Ma-
Okay, and he is. That's all I'm gonna say. The guy did many drugs on one stage, many stages actually. But people still love him.
Beh, ho il corpo, ma la Madò pubblicità con Vinicius. Ora vediamo se torna tutto alla mi metto in sottotitoli.
But people still love him. 2002 South Korea.
Aspetta che devo...
I did
Ecco.
many drugs on one stage, many stages actually. But people still love him.
Ok, il corpo.
2002 South Korea scandal. So in the 2002 World Cup, it was held in South Korea.
Ma che è che... Aspetta. Ok, mo ci sono i sottotitoli. È qua.
Scandal. So in the 2002
Ah!
held in South Korea, and there was
Schiatta. Aspetta. Schiatta. Schiatta Moreno. La cosa dei Game Boy, bellissima.
many dodgy calls and dodgy decisions that was going on in particularly South Korea's favor. South Korea came fourth in the tournament, and they knocked out Italy and
Aspetta che sono scomparsi.
Spain. And I mean,
Italia-
in the background, there'll be some footage here. There were some very weird decisions in that game, which led to a lot of controversy. And this is FIFA here with with what we know from the FIFA members.
Sì. Sono tornato da veramente sono il dio della procrastinazione. Oh, no, vabbè.
Which led to a lot of controversy. And this is FIFA here with with what we know from the FIFA members. I wouldn't really put it past something maybe going down here.
Ok, sottotitoli. Che scusate ragazzi, è che riguardarsi un video che hai già visto e poi hai questi sottotitoli di me, cioè, capisci, no?
Lot of controversy, and this is FIFA here with with what we know from the FIFA members. I wouldn't really put it past something maybe going down here. What I see from the consistency of the decisions and just how ridiculous some are between the Spanish and the Italian matches, I would be very surprised. Because either the guy is stupid and he doesn't see how this looks absolutely awful, or he's just stupid in general, or he's been paid off. Russian doping. So in the 2000
Doping
World
russo,
Cup,
ok.
people found it a bit insane.
Come dire, passiamo da una violazione di diritti umani a una... Oh, no, la Corea del Sud non è diritti umani, non viola i diritti umani, ma la Russia ovviamente sì, avete
How
visto.
so many players in the game they were just absolutely insane, mentally, physically, fitness wise. They were pulling off incredible stats in their own World Cup, and that could be a big factor. The WADA set a 4-year doping ban on a Russian national football team after the World Cup, in terms of one of the players were alleged to have been found to be one of the doping players. This was an entire controversy in Russia for Olympians as well, not just the footballers. But
Bene,
yeah, Russia, man. Can you like calm down for like 1 week? El Quinto Partido.
il
I do
quinto
call myself a
partito.
good old-fashioned curse. This is Mexico and the curse of the fifth match in the World Cup. Only once in 1986 have they ever reached the fifth game, which is in the quarterfinals. Only once in their entire history. Since then, they have always struggled to get past that stage, and it's now well known as a curse held to the Mexican people. If you talk to a Mexican football fan, they'll talk to you about this. So this is quite well known in their culture. 7 consecutive times they made it to the round of 16, and all 7 times, going back to 1994, they faced Bulgaria, Germany, USA, Argentina twice, the Netherlands, and then Brazil. Each time they were knocked out in the round of 16, 7 times in a row. Why is the reason? Bad luck, bad refereeing, penalties,
Beh,
psychological battles. I guess we'll never know, but this is a curse which is well
chi
known
lo
in
sa.
Mexican history in the World Cup. El Maracanazo.
Il
In 1990, in
Maracanese.
a FIFA World Cup qualification game between Brazil, of course, and Chile, Brazil was leading 1-0, in which later on in the game, in the second half, the Chilean goalkeeper Roberto Rojas had a flare thrown towards him, in which he pretended to be injured. Flare came towards
Ah,
him, he
bene.
fell to the ground in the 67th minute and pretended to be injured. All the Chilean officials, players, led by the captain, left the pitch in protest. The referees could not get them back on the pitch, and in response to this, what happened is that Chile got banned from precipitating in the 1990 World Cup
Bene.
qualifiers. They were no longer allowed to play any more games in qualification, even though it was the Brazilian fans that threw the flare to the goalkeeper. And then what makes it worse, the goalkeeper involved, Roberto Rojas, got banned for life. He never played again. Rojas being treated, Patricio Yanez made an obscene gesture to Brazilian fans by grabbing his genital. This is now known in Chile as Pato Yanez. Imagine being
Patoia.
banned from the World Cup because your goalkeeper pretended to be injured. Like your entire country's out because of one person. That is fucking mental. The Mighty Magyars. The Mighty Magyars,
Ah,
or the Golden Team, goes back to the great Hungarian side in the 50s, involved in the likes of Puskas. In 69 games between 1950 to 1956, they had 58 wins out of 69 games, 10 draws, and 1 loss. And that loss was in the 1954 World Cup final against Germany, no less. Statistically, according to the BBC, they are still seen as one of the best sides in footballing history. Their formation being the 2-3-2-3-2 formation. That
cioè,
is their formation, which is quite mad. I can't have a World Cup video without them in there. So the Mighty Magyars, the golden team, forever down in football history. And most people will forget about them, sadly. Roger Mila. Oh, Roger Mila, my boy. He's a good vibe. He's a
sì.
good vibe. Most people you may know this image here of Roger, the dance, the little like hips. You may not know who he is. His name's Roger Mila, Cameroonian lad. Cameroonian legend, okay? Just look
Ok.
at him go. There's not much really to go with this. Just
Aveva
you may know
42
him.
anni, cioè.
I like him. So, yeah, Roger Mila. Don't
Sì.
forget the name. What a hero. Paul the Octopus.
Oh, ecco qua.
The Octopus.
Il polpo Paul.
This
È Paolo
goddamn
il
octopus,
polpo.
bro. This guy ran the entirety. This octopus was more famous than England in this World Cup, which is sad, but it is completely true. Octopus.
Ma se ci pensate, sì, stesso anno tra... Il polpo Paul... Vedete se mo scopro che sia il polpo Paul, che il polpo Paul è lo stesso che hanno usato... No, no, no. Vi immaginate? Vabbè.
Guessed 8 out of 8 predictions correct in the World Cup. Now, of course, there's absolutely no reason behind this at all. He's just a lucky octopus, okay? And there's also a conspiracy theory that he was actually dead halfway through, and it wasn't actually Paul. It was actually Dave. I don't know why there's a conspiracy theory over octopus, but there you
Boh,
go. But yeah,
fa sempre teoria di
yep, 8 out
cospirazione.
of 8. There was it's had a tanker, obviously, because it's an octopus, and it put food inside of inside both boxes, and it guessed correctly the one with the right flag on it. The result of the game. Does this mean anything? No, not at all. Is it funny? I guess. I guess this was possibly the most famous parts that came out of that World Cup. This is up there with Jabulani and Vuvuzelas. You'll never get this ever again. Each World Cup, you get like some Donny with like a parrot. Like, oh look, it's Steve the parrot. No, shut up, mate. Get a job, okay? Put the
Va
parrot in
bene.
the cage, okay? And stop trying to be famous. Okay, I'm looking at you, mate. So that is the end of Just
Vabbè.
Beneath the Surface, which is kind of more looser things or things that you may not know of too much. Now, next level,
Ok.
it gets a bit more controversial.
Oh, si va nella parte babbo.
Thierry Henry. To this day,
Ah, Maro. Ok, mo.
Thierry Henry. To this day, if you try and speak to an Irishman about Thierry Henry,
Aspetta, Maronna. Ok.
controversial. Thierry Henry. To this day, if you try and speak to an Irishman about Thierry Henry, he won't look you in the eyes. If he does look at you, it'll be a pure look of disgust. They absolutely despise this man. I remember this so well. It was
Sì.
in the final
La palla
qualifier
a
to qualify
mano.
for the 2010 World Cup South Africa. It's gone all the way to the final few minutes. Free kick put into the box, and it is. I mean, you could just look at it, man. Just look at. He's not just handballed it once, but he's handballed it multiple times. He's handballed it multiple times to control the ball and get the ball into the box. And that was not given as a handball. And that led to that goal was the reason why Ireland were not at the 2010 World Cup. That is just
Cioè,
hell. Imagine this being the reason why you were not at the World Cup, that you got knocked out, you didn't get a chance because of this. I just can't believe it, man.
ma poi la Francia mi sembra che fece schifo quel mondiale, sì.
Really can't. In some sort of karma, France, of course, went on to that World Cup and absolutely collapsed. It was a complete mess, a complete state. I guess you could say that karma was indeed dealt very well. But if it means anything, Irish lads, at least they embarrassed themselves. The 1954 World Cup fixed. So yeah, the World Cup was held in Italy in 1954. Italy won it. People like to say that it's fixed and there's dictators towards it and Mussolini. Right, probably.
Parlando di dittatori e mondiali,
This is literally before World War II. I think a lot more crazy things are happening later on. So to imagine this
sì.
was fixed and some bribes went in place, probably the least surprising thing I've heard so far in this video. So
Beh,
probably. Probably.
non si sa.
1966 World Cup fixed. A very, very popular conspiracy. And this all came from the former FIFA president, João Havelange, who was a former president that was in office from 1974 until 1998. He made the claim that the 1966 World Cup was fixed alongside the 1974 World Cup. In 2008, spoke out saying that it was planned for the host countries, England and Germany, to win. Havelange, who is Brazilian, of course also added that Brazil was hard done by this, and at the time they were the best in the world that won the 1962 and 1970 World Cup. His proof of why this was rigged came from only one thing, that British referees was picked for the 1966 World Cup for the large chunk of it, picked by the FIFA predecessor, who was also English, in Sir Stanley Roos. This did add a little bit more believability when, of course, the goal in the actual 1966 World Cup final, when Geoff Hurst's shot was given as a goal, claiming that it went over the line. Many believe that it did not go over the line, and proof that it was indeed rigged, and that the tournament was rigged for the host nation to win. Iran v Bahrain 2002. Iran was on the verge of qualifying for the 2002 FIFA World Cup and just needed a win against a mediocre Bahrain side to secure that qualifying spot. However, in this game, a poor Iran barely even had a shot and slumped to a 1-0 defeat, leading them to go into the
Oh
playoffs
cacchio.
and being knocked out by Republic of Ireland. After being knocked out, a storm
Ha a che
broke
fare con
within
la
the host,
guerra?
alleging that the team had been ordered to take it easy by the Iranian government.
Eh sì, quello di Ali Khamenei che mo avete visto quest'anno, eh.
Claiming that the government
We are the soldiers of the IDF. They were supposed to lower army. And we have discovered a solution to our most perplexing quadrille. Madonna santa.
of Iran believes it undesirable for a large number of youths to congregate on the streets of Tehran, which occurred during the last World Cup as Iran beat the US. Not wanting history to repeat itself again, the conspiracy comes that they wanted them to purposely not make it to the World Cup so that this does not happen again. Conspiration 58. I had this in my first iceberg video, so I don't need to go into too much, but I will go over it briefly. In 2002, a
Sì,
film was created called Conspiration 58 and was a claim that the World Cup in Sweden in 1958 did not actually take place and did not happen in Sweden due to
cioè proprio
buildings
analizzano proprio l'asse, le cose, cioè...
behind the stadiums and the current sun position that did not actually relate to what it should be in Swedish summertime. They believe that it took place in LA and not in Scandinavia, claiming that photos of boots and player shadows did not accurately show where the sun should be at the time. However, at the end of this documentary, the credits rolled and it was claimed that the entire documentary was a hoax, an attempt to explore the pitfalls of history revisionism. At the time, Johann Lofstedts was frustrated of people denying the Holocaust and was showcasing...
Non ti immagini mo che ci sono i cazzo di social media e mo che Israele sta commettendo tutte quelle cose brutte. Ma veramente, cioè, io odio come l'internet affronti certe cose. Ad esempio, Epstein Files, che ne so, facevano no, tutte queste robe, tipo, cioè, che cazzarola abbiamo scoperto che i top elite, c'era sto giro di top elite mondiali che abusa di minorenni, cosa? Mi sono fatto un po' sgridare per un piccolo, sì, un piccolo momento cospirazionista, ma in realtà non preoccupate ragazzi, odio teorie della cospirazione, non preoccupati, però sì. E cosa ha fatto internet a questa grande scoperta? Vabbè, ignorando i meme, anche che tipo facevo, ma soprattutto i meme, quelli là tipo che rivalutavano tipo varie figure storiche, tipo Bush, tipo facevano le robe tipo no, che almeno non abusa, cioè credo che tra un po'. Cacchio, avevo in mente di fare tipo un meme che imitava tutti sti post qua, tipo con Totorrina, no? Dai, no, Totorrina, no? Almeno non abusava di me, Totorrina. Eh. E adesso, come vedete, col conflitto di Israele e Palestina, adesso no, Israele sta commettendo tutte queste cose brutte, striscia di casa, ammazza i civili, e le persone che fanno? Decidono di fare gli edit, che Hitler aveva ragione e che... Ragazzi, proprio credo che l'internet abbia rovinato la discussione politica, cioè veramente fanculo la discussione politica su internet, cioè proprio punto e basta, fanculo la discussione politica su internet, lo ripeterò cioè non ce la faccio, ok? Non ce la faccio. Come ho già detto, è incredibile cioè, è incredibile come quelle robe là per cui mi sono fatto bannare da Reddit erano tutti scherzi. Dovevo farmi bannare da Reddit perché era un po'... No, boh. Madonna.
stupid it could be to look back on history and to claim things did not happen when it really did. And he created this fake documentary and fake conspiracy to show how easy people can believe in ridiculous things. However, despite openly saying that, people still believe that the World Cup in 1958 still never happened in Sweden, nor Cornwall. In the 80s and 90s, Colombian football was dictated by gangs, drug cartels,
Cacchio,
and
sì,
every
tipo
aspect.
quello di Pabli, sto dicendo, tipo quelle di Pablito. Scusate, è un impulso. Stavo dicendo, scusate, è un impulso, ragazzi, mi tolgo lo
Por
sfizio.
favor. ¿Ha voglia di scopare?
Ok, bene, sfizio tolto, torniamo al video, sto procrastinando troppo. Sto procrastinando troppo, scusate ragazzi, scusate.
Of football
Ah,
from the leagues to the national team. This is, of course, the story of Pablo Escobar, head of the
sì.
Medellin cartel, and bankrolled his beloved Atletico Nacional until his death. This enabled Atletico Nacional to win their first ever 1989 Copa Libertadores. For example, in 1989, there was a top-of-the-table clash between America de Cali and Independiente. Bragging rights were up between both sides. Everyone knew that the cartel money was sustaining each other's efforts on the field. After 90 minutes, it led to a 0-0 draw. Pablo Escobar was furious of some of the referee's unfavorable decisions towards his team. Alvaro Ortega completed the game, packed away his whistle, his black uniform, and his boots, and never returned to a football match ever again. He was murdered that very evening. In the 1994
Oh
World Cup,
cazzo, ecco
Colombia
qua.
had a big game against USA. Another example of their influence on the Colombian national team. After losing 3-1 to Romania in the first game, they had America in the second match. If Colombia loses, they are sent packing. So the cartel made
Yeah.
their move, delivering a message on national television stating that there will be fatal consequences if Gabriel Gomez played in the next game. The coach had no
Oh
choice
cazzo.
but to leave him out, and Colombia went on to lose 2-1 to the Americans. Bobby Moore.
Non citi che sì, persero per un autogol di un difensore di nome Andres Escobar e poi quel difensore venne poi assassinato, cioè Madonna Santa, tutta sta storia è tremenda, ok, tremenda.
1970. In the 1970 World Cup, Bobby Moore was arrested by the Colombian Secret Service. He was being accused of stealing an emerald bracelet from the Hotel Jewelers in Colombia. He was placed under house arrest for 4 days until the release was secured by pressure from the current Prime Minister. There was absolutely no evidence that he did steal anything, and 2 years later, leaked documents suggested that it was a deliberate sting by the Colombian police. At the time, England was the defending World Cup champions, and this was a conspiracy that they purposely arrested their best player under no evidence to destabilize the English squad. This is something that you could maybe partially believe in. Argentina versus Peru 1978. When Argentina beat Peru 6-0 to ensure that they qualify through to the next round of the World Cup, people believe that things.
Aspetta, stavo ignorando, fatemi rivedere. Ah, ok, praticamente si hanno ha fatto autorestare il loro miglior giocatore per come dire, essere sportivi, no? Facciamo dei. Praticamente si sono sparati ad un piede, ma che cafonata è questa, cioè.
Versus Peru 1978. When Argentina beat Peru 6-0 to
Ah, siamo
ensure that
arrivati
they
comunque sì,
qualified
all'alta
through to the next
dittatura.
round of the World Cup, people believe that things were a bit dodgy. Argentina was in the same group as Brazil, Poland, and Peru. Peru were already knocked out of the World Cup. However, first place had advanced to the final, and Brazil had an advance to the third place playoff. Both were on the same points, however, goal difference would be the main decider. Argentina needed to win by at least 4 goals to qualify to the next round. Argentina had to beat Peru by 4 goals or more to go through to the final. Well, how can it be a conspiracy when they both played at the same time? Well, they didn't. FIFA ordered Brazil to play their game against Poland first, and then Argentina then played against Peru, meaning that Argentina had an advantage knowing exactly how many goals it would take to make it to the final. And one big reason of why this held so much weight is that guess where the World Cup was being hosted? Yes, you guessed it, Argentina.
Esattamente.
Peru was bought out and was told to down tools to let Argentina score at least 4 or more goals in that game to allow us to make it through to the final. This is something that I again can partially
Eccolo qua, il
believe in.
dittatore, sì, quello che era il dittatore dell'Argentina, ovvero Videla.
As back in this time period, it is not hard to believe that corruption did take place. Tell me your thoughts down below.
Ah, fra... che cazzo. Ecco qua, il logo di questo mondiale, c'è scritto su Wikipedia, sì, è stato basato tipo sul saluto che faceva Juan Perón. Il saluto Juan... non funerali di Stato, Eccolo qua. Peron era noto per per salutare la folla così. E sì, come vedete, ha basato il logo del mondiale, no? Con le strisce, che sembra un omino. Quindi, sì, Peron anche lui era abbastanza autoritario. Quindi, come dire,
You guessed it, Argentina.
beh, come dire, un po' ci sono i segni, ok? Come
Claiming
dire.
that Peru was bought out and was then partially believing, as back in this time period, it is not hard to believe that corruption did take place. Tell me your thoughts down below. 2010 North Korea propaganda. I am
Ah.
sure that you have seen across many social medias on YouTube, on Twitter.
Sì, ripeto però tipo parlano di varie versioni su cosa è successo dopo che la Corea del Nord venne eliminata dal mondiale, che vabbè, voi sapete la Corea del Nord, uno dei paesi più democratici che ci siano. C'è scritto nel nome completo della propria nazione, c'è scritto sia democratica e del popolo, quindi come dire, cosa c'è di più democratico di questo? Però, però sì, ci sono varie persone, ad esempio, che vennero uccisi. Wikipedia dice tipo allenatore che ha fatto i lavori forzati. Vabbè, ragazzi, voi sapete com'è la Corea del Nord, quindi come dire...
On Facebook this same image. An image depicting that North Korea, allegedly on North Korean TV, spread propaganda that they indeed won the 2010 World Cup, beating Brazil. In an image here saying that they beat Japan 7-0, USA 4-0, and China 2-0.
Sì,
This was an image relating to the 2014 World Cup group stages, which of
ma
course they never appeared in. Of course, this was all parody. This was
bene.
not real, and I am sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but North Korea didn't actually spread propaganda that they won the World Cup and beat Brazil. This is one example of people being able to spread news that they know that people can't really respond back to. Yeah, sorry to be a spoil sport, but this is not true. There,
Vabbè.
1974.
Ah, proprio passiamo da una dittatura
I'm
all'altra,
sure that at
bene.
one stage in your life
Sì,
you've seen this particular comedic
sì,
moment at the 1974 World Cup,
sì,
where
sì, sì.
Brazil played Zaire, who was an African nation at the time, who later were proceeded to become the Democratic Republic of Congo, labeled to be a
Sì.
bizarre moment of African ignorance by commentator John Motson, as Brazil's star men, Rivellino and Jorginho, was over the ball for the free kick, and the defender broke free of the Zaire wall and booted the ball away as far as he could, receiving a yellow card. As many people brush it off as simple ignorance for not knowing the rules of the game, and claiming that Zaire did not know the rules of football, which was seen as highly disrespectful, there's a darker story to it. At the
Ok.
time, Zaire was
Sì,
under the rule of fierce dictator Mobutu Sese Seko, who was
sì,
making
sì.
big changes in the country. He changed the name from Congo to Zaire in 1971 and was heavily invested in football in his homeland and aggressively went on building a
Sì.
dominant side. They qualified
Sì,
for the
pure con la roba sì, di Foreman contro Alisi.
1974 World Cup and had a group with Scotland, Yugoslavia,
Rumble
and
in the
Brazil. They
Jungle.
went on to lose to a Kenny Dalglish Scottish side, only 2-0, and was seen to be an okay defeat in the grand scheme of things. However, the next game against Yugoslavia was much, much worse. A World Cup record 9-0 defeat. And dictator Mobutu was furious. Such was his anger that he ordered several of the personal bodyguards to go over to Germany and threaten the national team, telling the squad that
Cioè,
if they lost by more than 3 goals, to the reigning world champions Brazil, then they would not be allowed back in the country. So comes the second half, and Zaire
Madonna.
are 2-0 down to Brazil, and the free kick moment took place. Alunga booted the ball away as far as he could during that free kick as an attempt to run the clock down. Zaire went on to lose the game 3-0, and only a few were allowed to return home, albeit in disgrace. Several players of that team died in poverty. Malamba Ndiaye was forced to beg in South Africa, and Ikofa Mbungu was working as a taxi driver.
Ma quella... Ragazzi, volete che... Ma quell'immagine di prima non erano immagini tipo... Aspetta. Ok, scusate, stavo... Era roba tipo, credevo... Perché non lo so, mi ricordo che ero andato sulla pagina di... della... mi ero ritrovato su Wikipedia a vedere la pagina della... Come posso dirlo? La violenza... La violenza sessuale, ok, basta, diciamolo così, io sono senza filtri, dico ciò che voglio perché non me ne frega niente, ok? Ah. Vabbè, comunque, stavo andando a vedere, boh, mi ricordo che mi ero ritrovato tipo una foto di tipo delle donne, delle antiche donne che appunto hanno ricevuto sto tipo di violenza durante tipo la guerra civile del Congo, ragazzi, è il conflitto più, sì, quello con più morti dalla seconda guerra mondiale, sì. Vabbè, però non voglio andare a trovare, non voglio andarla a ritrovare. Magari se cerco proprio la... Aspetta. Ragazzi, avevo ragione. Aspetta, rivediamo la foto.
Return home, albeit in disgrace. Several players of that team died in poverty. Malamba Ndiaye.
Sì, e questa foto qua. Proprio... ragazzi, è una cosa... Questa è una foto di donne che sono state violentate. Ragazzi, ma immagini, cioè, ragazzi, ma il Congo, cioè, colonizzazione più brutale, come si chiama? Sì, del Belgio, colonizzazione brutale del Belgio. Ottieni l'indipendenza e 5 anni di guerra. Alla fine di quei 5 anni di guerra ti becchi 30 anni di dittatura. E poi dopo quei 30 anni di dittatura ti becchi due guerre civili, con la seconda che è il conflitto più brutale dei tempi della seconda guerra mondiale. Ma, ma veramente brutale, veramente. Brutale.
Was forced to beg in South Africa, and Ikofa Mbungu was working as a taxi driver. Ilunga, the tragic hero of this piece, sadly died in 2015 at the age of 66. One strange part of history where a dictator controlled everything to do with the country and its sport. Australia witch doctor. In November 1969, the Socceroos travelled to Mozambique to play against what was at the time Rhodesia, or is now Zimbabwe, in a two-part series to qualify for the 1970 World Cup in Mexico. However, in a two-leg match, both games were draws and the third fixture was announced. The story goes that a local journalist gave the Australian team a tip and said that they could use a witch doctor to help them beat the Rhodesian team. They saw it as no harm to give it a chance. So, later that night, a Nyunga went to the pitch where the game was being played and buried some bones near the goalpost and placed a curse on the Rhodesian team. So when they did play that third game, Australia won 3-1. However, when the Nyunga asked to be paid for his services, the players were either unwilling or unable to pay, leading to Nyunga to have a reverse curse on the Socceroos, and that lasted for 35 years. The godfather of Australian football, Johnny Warren, once spoke of the incident, claiming that from that moment everything went wrong for the Australian national team. A countless amount of gut-wrenching losses caused the Socceroos to never qualify for a World Cup for many, many years. The last time was in 1974. One famous game was back in 1997 when they had a shock loss to Iran in Melbourne to fail to qualify for the 1998 World Cup. Many believing that the witch doctor's curse was still on the Australian national team, so they went out of their way to try to break the curse. So they took matters into their own hands. So the Socceroos travelled back to Mozambique, where they met a couple of Enyungas called Paulinho and Miriam. And on that very same football pitch where they beat Rhodesia in 1969 and performed a ritual to lift the heads, which included covering saffron in chicken's blood. Saffron went back to Australia and was covered in a special clay. They completed the ritual, and long behold, when Australia played against Uruguay to qualify for the 2006 World Cup, long behold, they qualified for the World Cup, beating them on penalties. This was
spargendosi argilla e tutte ste robe.
was actually put on the Socceroos. And you know what? God Almighty, I believe it too. The holy water scandal. One of the most famed scandals in football history. The date, 24th of June, 1990. And Argentina has eliminated Brazil from the World Cup. However, this did not come without any controversy. Accusations was made that Argentinian staff spiked one of the Brazilian players with a spiked water bottle. They met in the first knockout round, where Brazilian defender Branco helped keep Diego Maradona in check. But during a pause in play, Branco drank from a water bottle handed to him by a member of Argentinian staff. He later complained that he began feeling drowsy and was unable to keep up with Maradona, who then, later in that game, completed a brilliant run to set up Claudio Caniggia for the winning goal. And Argentina eventually advanced all the way to the final, where they fell to West Germany 1-0. Maradona claimed that the water bottle Branco was given was spiked with tranquilizers. Branco threatened to sue the Argentine Football Association, however they denied any knowledge of the event. The scandal continued for 15 years, as FIFA was asked by Brazil to investigate the claim.
Comunque all'Argentina piace andare ai mondiali e fa scatenare una controversia, cioè proprio loro sono i campioni del mondo in questo.
And this infamous event spiked the animosity between Argentinian football and Brazilian football even further. Barbosa, 1950. The 1950 World Cup final. The host nation Brazil was in the final and were up against a giant at the time, Uruguay. If you speak to Brazilians of a certain age group, they look back on that final as the fateful final, or the word in Portuguese, fatídio. The Brazilians built the Maracanã purposely for this World Cup. Moacir Barbosa was the goalkeeper for the Brazil national team. Brazil scored the first goal in the final by a goal in the second half by Friatza. However, Uruguay came back with a goal from Chiafino to equalise past Barbosa, and 13 minutes later, Gigia of Uruguay ran down the line again. At 4:33 on the 16th of July 1950, the worst moment in his career, as Gigia ran down the line and Barbosa anticipated a cross. However, as the ball came in, the ball went to the near post and caught Barbosa off guard. It was a poor goal to concede. Brazilians were distraught and wanted someone to blame.
Venne reso
the scapegoat.
Capro espiatorio, mamma mia.
That cost Brazil the World Cup. For the rest of Barbosa's life, following this event, this one single moment haunted him. It was reported that people spat on him on the street on multiple occasions, abused him day to day for being the man that made Brazil cry. He never played for Brazil again and was denied coaching jobs and really any jobs in football after he retired. He even visited the Brazilian national team to wish them well. However, turning up to the training ground, he was denied entry, as the staff at the time feared bad luck from Barbosa and refused him to enter the grounds. As the staff at the time feared bad luck from Barbosa and refused him to enter the grounds. Multiple years later, Barbosa invited a few friends who wanted to have a barbecue. They noticed on the fire that it had some strange logs in it, and they were in really strange shapes. And that is because the week before, Barbosa had been presented with the Maracanã goalpost from that fateful day. He went on to chop up and burn the goalpost with his friends. Quoted, "The steak I cooked that day was the best steak I ever tasted." A quote from a friend saying, "I'm not guilty. There was 11 of us." In Brazil, the most you get for any crime is 30 years. For 50 years, I've been paying a crime that I did not commit. Even a criminal, when he has paid his debt, is forgiven. But I have never been forgiven. El Salvador versus Honduras. Have you ever heard of a football match that led to a war? Well, in this story, this was the case. In 1969, a playoff took place in Estadio Azteca in Mexican City. Tensions was high between the two nations. On the line was a place in the 1970 World Cup, but in reality that is quite irrelevant because these tensions were started much earlier. A war potentially sparked by football was formed due to unfair treatment of migrant workers and settlers in Honduras from Salvadorian immigrants. The deciding match entered the 11th minute of extra time. El Salvador's Mauricio Rodriguez scored the winning goal, resulting in a 3-2 victory for El Salvador. Whilst the team did go on to play in the 1970 World Cup, 10 days since the game, El Salvador dissolved all diplomatic ties with Honduras. In Honduras, almost 12,000 Salvadorans was forced to flee the country. The war between the two nations went on for 100 hours, leading in over 3,000 deaths.
3.000 morti! Cioè, ragazzi, pensateci per una partita.
Sandor Suks was a Hungarian footballer in the 1950s and was a part of the famous Hungarian teams at the time. However, may not be as famous as the likes of Ferenc Puskás. Sandor Suks holds a unique, if not somewhat morbid place in Hungarian football history. He was a great defender and after World War II won 3 successive league titles with Újpest. In 1948 he met a woman called Ezi Kovacs, who was an up-and-coming jazz singer. Suks and Kovacs fell madly in love with each other, and despite both being married at the time, the authorities frowned upon such behaviour, and to avoid a major scandal, Suks was dropped from the national team. The Hungarian secret police got involved and went out to abandon the affair, or Suks and Kovacs would face the consequences. Caught even his footballer's legs cannot help him escape. Suks had some interest from the Italian club Torino, and the duo saw this as the opportunity to escape the country. They saw this as their one and only chance to be together. They enlisted the help of a smuggler. Hungary at the time was controlled by the Soviet Union. The couple began their journey together with the handler entrusted to smuggle them out of the country. Shortly after passing through a checkpoint near the Austrian border, the trio was stopped by the Hungarian secret police officers, at which point the smuggler revealed himself to be an agent and handed the couple over to the authorities. Sandor Suks and Ezi Kovacs were taken to the Terror Haza, otherwise known as the House of Terror, which was the headquarters of the Hungarian secret police in Budapest, where they were tortured and interrogated before being charged for attempted illegal border crossing and high treason. Suks was tried in court, which was essentially a show trial with no hope of getting any success from it, and was found guilty of all charges and sentenced to death by hanging. His lover, Kovacs, begged Suks to plead the court for mercy, which he refused, stating that he would rather die than live his life apart from her. On the 4th of June 1951, Suks was executed by the Hungarian state. The crime of falling in love with a woman and trying to escape the strict communist regime, a dark cloud that still hovers Hungarian football. Matthias Schindler was an Austrian striker in the 1930s, nicknamed the Paperman due to his height and slim build. Schindler made 43 appearances for Austria, scoring 27 goals. Following Austria's occupation from Germany in 1938, Schindler declined to play for the new unified team despite repeated requests by the German manager. Although he cited age as a basis of his refusal, others took it as a sign of protest against the Nazi regime. Thus, on the 23rd of January 1939, the 35-year-old was found dead, along with his girlfriend, Camilla Cascagnola, at her Vienna apartment. Records attribute their deaths to accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. Rumours persist of much more darker means. People have belief that he was targeted by the Germans, while others suggested that he and his girlfriend was took out by the Germans for harboring Jewish sympathies. Matthias Schindler is just one example of the awful atrocities caused in Europe in football between 1939 and 1943. Andreas Escobar. Earlier in this video, I highlighted the impact of narco ball when Colombian
Ah,
international
mo ne parla di
was
Escobar, ecco
riddled
qua.
with cartel violence. Andreas Escobar is the most damning
Mo ve ne
and
parla,
most
ecco qua.
disturbing example of this period in Colombian football. On June 22nd, 1994, Andres Escobar, the captain of the Colombian men's national team, a widely respected player, scored an own goal in Colombia's match against the US at the World Cup. Colombia lost the game 2-1 and was eliminated from the tournament. 10 days later, on the early morning of July 2nd, Andres Escobar was confronted by a group of men outside a club in his hometown, Medellin. The men taunted Escobar for the own goal. He was sitting in his car and he said the goal was a honest mistake. One of the men drew a .38 caliber pistol and shot Andreas Escobar 6 times and killed him.
Oh
According to
shit.
reports, the man yelled goal each time he pulled the trigger. The police the next day arrested the gunman involved, who was a bodyguard and a driver for the Gallen brothers, a pair of powerful criminals and drug traffickers. The Gallen brothers had reportedly lost large sums of money betting on the matches with Colombia at the World Cup. The Gallens ordered Humberto Castro Munoz, the gunman, to kill Escobar in retaliation. Escobar's funeral drew thousands of Colombians who flooded the car carrying his body on a 10-mile walk to the cemetery. A simple mistake, a simple own goal, cost a man his life.
Mamma mia, vabbè. Cioè.
Alex Villaplane. Alex Villaplane was a footballer for France in the
Che palle però, Maronna Santa.
1930s and even captained France in their first ever match in the World Cup finals over a 4-1 win over Mexico in 1930. He was known for his aggressive attitude on the pitch and known for his tough tackling and short-fused temper. For example, when Nice snapped up Villaplane, they soon regretted it. Several times he was fined for missing training, and when he played, he looked unfit and was uninterested. And in 1935, 5 years later, after playing in the World Cup for France and captaining them, he was lost in football. However, of course, in June 1940, Paris fell to Nazi Germany. The occupation of Paris spelt doom and despair to many, but for some, it spawned new opportunities. The French Gestapo was formed, and Alex Villaplane became part of it. His life and career spiraled out of control. Greed and he sought criminality to cover the lost finances that he'd grown accustomed to in football. Villaplane was not interested in the moral or political ramifications of his actions, just the paychecks. His power and cruelty rose to measure, culminating in the massacre in Musidan in 1944. At Musidan, 52 inhabitants were killed by Villaplane. This included men, women, and children not involved in the French resistance or even fighting at the time. Villaplane hit the heights of pure evil and continued to escalate his violence and corruptness. He was now seeking to kill his own people, fighting to restore the country that had given him everything. In August 1944, France was liberated by the Allied forces, and Villaplane was captured alongside the French Gestapo. The tragic decline of a man who once captained his country of France, becoming a true beacon of potential future for the nation, wasting his talent and becoming corrupt only 10 years later. Villaplane, alongside other members of the French Gestapo, was executed at gunpoint on Boxing Day, 1944.
Beh, oh Santo Stefano, io. Abbiamo finito.
So there you have it, that is the official World Cup iceberg. Thank you for sticking.
Che cazzo, basta, finiamo sto video, è stato un inferno veramente. Vedete, si è visto che ero proprio interessato a fare questo video, Allora ragazzi, io vi dico che... Ragazzi, lo sapete che che magari uno di questi giorni vi beccate sto nuovo video sui Wojak. Lo voglio fare, ok? Cioè, ormai devo, ragazzi, ormai devo cenare. Ci vediamo domani. Ciao!